Um, all right, everybody. This is my interview with SquidJedi because I wanted to interview you because I had a hard time getting into Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Everyone was telling me, "Oh, this is the big show you should watch." So I was a bit baffled. People kept telling me, "Just skip the first two seasons or get to this one, get to this one." And I'm thinking, maybe I should watch them all in order. But people tell me that some bits get boring, but other bits are quite exciting. So it was a bit hard for me to start. But thankfully, through Stardust and through Disney Plus, I had you, Brooks, to introduce me to it. We've had sessions in these past 2 months of you just guiding me through the episodes, and I learned a lot from you. I learned that this whole show is told through arcs, not necessarily individual episodes.
Wait, pause the recording.
Uh, I'll edit it later. Yeah.
No, wait. Can you hear them?
I'll edit this out, just vaguely at the loudest. I don't hear them now.
Okay, let's continue.
Oh, wait. And I don't hear them. Okay. Oh. So this is gonna take a while. And I'm assuming they're not talking now. So thankfully, I had you to guide me through the seasons. You took me through. We kind of jumped from point to point, but it was still intriguing to learn how the show was structured, who the key character was, what exactly was happening, apart from the obvious of it being between episodes 2 and 3. And you told me you kept praising this show, and you still do to this day. So, what is it about this show that really intrigues you, Brooks?
Okay, so, okay. How do I break this down? Okay, so, okay, first thing off, it was on Cartoon Network. It was on Cartoon Network. And you want to know what was in the show? Decapitations galore. Decapitations, like assassinations, economic crises, political talks, and also terrorism, nihilism, and the philosophy of slavery, and the philosophy of nihilism.
All that and some other deep subject matter, like other things regarding romance, other things regarding tragedy. It's got a lot of things. A lot of things bundled up into one. I think the PG or PG-13 rating is definitely justified for a show like this.
But sometimes PG, like Steven Universe, is PG, but some people say that but The Simpsons is PG, and
yeah.
people. But also, I think that regular show or Adventure Time or maybe Steven Universe, they really shouldn't be called kid shows, because I don't feel like regular show is a kid show exactly, or Adventure Time is.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. You have these shows that are generally kid shows, but are most, due to their content, is aimed for a older demographic. That we've had a trend of those recently.
Okay,
yeah.
So basically, the Clone Wars was a show that was tailored to kids, but we all know it's not a kid show. We all know.
Yeah, I confess that I made the error of calling Clone Wars a kid show various times, mostly jokingly, but it was an error nonetheless. So
also, there's genocide in this. There's also genocide, and it's also showed fully on screen in front of and somehow they got away with it.
Yeah, this is like Game of Thrones quality stuff, and they somehow managed to get. Okay, Brooks. Sorry, I just remembered the one episode where.
Oh yeah, and there's strippers in the show.
Basically, it was the episode arc where Fives is trying to find out about Order 66. And for whatever reason, there's these aliens with barely any clothes on. Like, how is this a kid's show? We both burst out laughing just from seeing that. It's like, how did that get in there?
Seriously, and I think that this is where Nickelodeon is the safe corner, and that Cartoon Network is the edgier, like more like because it's edgier and more like it's yeah, and that's pretty much true, and that's why they said yes to the Clone Wars. They said
Yeah,
yes.
this is the same platform that brought us Samurai Jack before season 5, of course. So yeah, that would say a lot. Speaking of Samurai Jack, a lot of the character design from this show was influenced by Gennady Tartakovsky's previous inclusion to the Star Wars franchise with his own inclusion of
But
Star Wars
one
Clone Wars.
thing
Yeah.
I have to say about like this, the Clone Wars 2008 to 2020, there's some things that are missing in that was from the original Genny version that never made it to the Clone Wars, and that was the knighting of Anakin.
Yes, yes. There's this really confusing dilemma about what's canon and what's legends, but a lot of important stuff happens in this version. Anakin gets knighted from Padawan to Jedi by getting that little hair braid cut off.
And
We
and um Palpatine was kidnapped by General Grievous.
Yeah, that's a pretty crucial
But
element because
also, this was made canon, like knighting was made canon in Star Wars Rebels when Kanan Jarrus was made a Jedi Knight. By the rights of the Council, by the will of the Force, you are now knighted Jedi Knight.
uh-huh.
But it's kind of sad that it wasn't made canon in George Lucas's mind and in George Lucas's work, because that was all Dave Filoni, and that's what Dave Filoni should at least like maybe had a flashback or something, just like something like maybe that.
Yeah, that would be understandable. I'm sorry, I'm not really Grievous myself.
That's all I have. That's all I have to say about my problem. Not problem, just nitpicks or like or like.
Yeah, it's interesting that what's been borrowed and what's not been necessarily carried on. I think for the sake of understanding.
Also, you want to know something in my mind? And okay, so what's the truth? What's canon? Anything that George Lucas made, the Clone Wars, the original trilogy, and the prequels, that's canon since that was made by George Lucas. But in my mind, my personal heart, that the Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic and also Knights of the Old Republic and can be canon too. It should be canon. But here's the thing that George Lucas said that basically everything that happened in Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic is not in his canon. He did not foresee that. He just, in this show, it even says in the show his lore, even though he should have made a show about that it really was the Sith that destroyed each other. They ruled the galaxy once, but then they all destroyed each other. And then in the awakening of the Jedi rose to power. And then over time, the Mandalorians like rised up, and then the Jedi faced the Mandalorians. And also, but there still can be KOTOR because Revan fought in the Mandalorian Wars, and he could still be a character in that timeline. And I really thought they should have made a show about George Lucas's lore, because it's like saying it's like and also with KOTOR and like the Old Republic, it's like letting the fans write the Silmarillion for J.R.R. Tolkien.
Now
It's
that's
kind of
something to consider. Yes.
it's kind of madness. It's kind of like, no, it should have been George Lucas that should have written this, even though we've gotten some amazing stuff for both KOTOR 1 and 2. It's just that it should have been George Lucas who written the lore of Star Wars.
Yeah, George Lucas as wonderful as he is, has admittedly been rather inconsistent with his vision, but somehow we get those occasional glimpses in the case of the Clone Wars where, of course, George Lucas created everything, but then he put his faith in Dave Filoni and his team, and it worked. This whole series worked. They took some inspiration from that. Every episode of the Clone Wars says it was created by George Lucas, so he's had some contribution to the story of each episode. So
it's just that, and also it's just that. Here's the thing. It's Okay, you continue talking. I have nothing yet.
This is why I brought you on board, because you know a lot more about the show than I do. This what did they take from the Clone Wars? Obviously, the character design. They took some of the
from
the characters that were introduced. It was actually Gennady Tartakovsky who introduced even
and also
General...
that Doom guy, you know, the one, wait, bring your camera, bring that in, the one right there,
That one?
Yes, he was a cool character, and he could have played, and also he had in the EU, he hated Mandalorians, so that's why he hated clones, because they're Mandalorian clones.
Oh, okay. See, the thing about Gennady Tartakovsky's Clone Wars that think about Gennady Tartakovsky, arguably in general, he was never really about narratives as such. He was always focusing on just getting you in the moment of the action and just letting the visuals speak for themselves.
Yeah,
whereas with
master of visual storytelling, but it also, here's the disadvantage at that: you can't anything complex in it. You can't discuss complex issues.
That's where the Clone Wars comes in. Yes.
Yeah.
So as you know, this is
also and also to all those who don't understand the midichlorians. Okay, so in like one episode where Qui-Gon Jinn, like, you thought he was dead, but no, he was trying to become a Force ghost, but since Darth Maul basically killed him, his training was incomplete. So he's nothing but a bunch of lights whistling around, talking to Yoda, and even brings him to Dagobah, and that's how Yoda discovers Dagobah. And he tells him that the midichlorians are the living force to the cosmic force. So, and also, I heard in like KOTOR that like Darth Traya says that the force is not that enslaves all people. It enslaves everyone to its will. The slightest touch, the biggest push, and that sends an echo to everyone. And also that she might be right and she might be wrong, because the Force, I don't think in George Lucas' mind is enslaving. Because in this great video, it's called the Philosophy of Darth Traya and an examination of Star Wars. It talks about how everything keeps repeating, but it's got a great point. But I feel like that George Lucas really wanted to say that it's like he says, like, poetry, it rhymes, but he doesn't. But for all the people who say that Disney trilogy is like it's containing the repetition, but no, George Lucas wanted to stop the repetition with Return of the Jedi. That's where everything ended.
Yeah, there's this reoccurring theme of the ways of the old Jedi, the ways of the new Jedi, which kind of plays into the episode where Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order. Yeah.
And also, Yoda learns about the Force Priestess, and he learns how he can attain the great gift. And to all the people who don't know, who think that there should have been Force Ghosts, everyone should have been Force Ghosts at the end, that would have been impossible, because the Force Ghost is only to a select few people who can attain the great gift. It's like saying that Rey can be powerful without even training, but she can't, because you need training and discipline in order to be a full Jedi Master or Jedi Knight.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the arc where Yoda's going through his own sort of pilgrim's progress, as it were, for the Force, because that's one of the deepest episodes deepest bunch of episodes I've seen in the entire series. It's really fascinating because I rarely see a lot of shows, especially ones rated like PG, that talk a lot about like philosophies and religions and stuff like that. So stuff like that really gets my attention for obvious reasons.
Mine too.
Yeah. The closest thing I can think of to this kind of open conversation is The Simpsons. It's another show that's not afraid to talk about like different religions and just being open-minded about stuff like it. And even just like
rating. About the same rating.
Yeah, and the same rating, and that's a satirical show that appeals to everybody. But so basically, as everyone knows, in the context of Star Wars, this spiritual energy is called the Force, and much of it is left a mystery for sake of interpretation, but a lot of it has been influenced by George Lucas's own experiences with spirituality. There was some Christianity thrown in there, and there's a good light side, and there's a dark evil side, and in this arc, Yoda and the other Jedi are beginning to hear the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn, the Jedi mentor of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who got sliced through the chest by Darth Maul.
And let me say, they don't believe that this is possible because that when a Jedi dies, they become one with the
living force. Yeah,
and they in their consciousness becomes nothing. Their conscious, but their soul becomes a part of the living force, and yeah, but also explores how when you become part of the living force, you give more life to the galaxy. So Darth Treya was wrong that it's not the force is not an enslavement on your. It's not. It's really a wellspring of life for everyone.
Aye. And
also the Sith are like a cancer, and that is why they must be destroyed in order for there to be balance.
And watching this, I was thinking, I wonder how they not know this. And there's a part of me that's the theorizing part of me that's thinking maybe they got so caught up with all the politics and fighting up the dark side, they've forgotten about their sort of enlightenment with the light side, which I think was part of Palpatine's plan, if I'm not mistaken. So it's about time Yoda takes a bit of time out from the war just to find out, like, who is he? What's his significance in all this? And how he's going to, achieve becoming a ghost. So this is where it gets a bit personal for Yoda, because he's been fighting and leading for so long. He hasn't really paid much attention to his own spiritual well-being in the context of Star Wars. So they try a few scientific tests to check if he's deluded or if he's any other medical condition, but none can be found. So Yoda reckons, okay, this is just something I have to do on my own. Come with me, R2-D2. We're going on a trip. Goes to Dagobah, which is emanating the Force energy, and he meets the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, and he has to go on this the series of this path. He meets these Force priestesses who promise that he can have the power to come back as a ghost if he goes through these trials, which mainly involve him getting rid of his dark side, finding this sort of balance inside of him. Just
get rid of his dark side. How to control his dark side. You can't get rid of your dark side. Like in real life, you can't get rid of your original sin. You can reject it, but you can't get rid of it.
That's what led to this obviously this amazing scene where Yoda's confronting this inner demon that manifests in a sort of a shadowy Yoda, which I wouldn't blame a lot of people if they mistake him for like a emo Stitch or like a like Gollum if he was like playing too much of this dark emo game or something. But either way, Yoda's fighting off this dark Yoda, and he's again, his wartime has led him to have this mindset. I mean, it's understandable. He's like, I'm choosing not to give you power. I'm gonna suppress you. I mean, understandable, but at the same time, he's unintentionally let this anger, this anxiety in him grow. He didn't foresee it, but it grew, and not until the climax of the fight he realizes, okay, you're right. I do recognize you. I have goofed up. I have done wrong, but I don't have to submit to you. And that's how he manages to defeat his dark side by recognizing his weaknesses, and only then does he have the power to reject his dark side. And he goes through some other tests like that, and to quote our friend Neil, it gets pretty metal sometimes. Like some of the language they use, that's like, whoa, are children ready to handle this source material? Like, yikes! You've got these like phantoms, you've got these like nihilistic sayings from the villains, like, whoa. This is something that a lot of people struggle with on an existential basis. I mean, this is something that children are. This is pretty big.
I watched that when I was 12.
Yikes! And then there's a final test from the ever so fabulous Tim Curry as
No. It's actually Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill. Oh, Mark Hamill?
Yeah, it's Mark Hamill. He played Darth Bane.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Mark Hamill, with his voice talent,
Tim Curry was Palpatine.
Yeah, Tim Curry was Palpatine. Sorry, I was getting to that. Sorry. Mark Hamill voices Darth Bane, who puts Yoda to a test. And Palpatine is played by Tim Curry. Palpatine has had various voice actors. To go on a brief side note, what the other voice actor is a bit more consistent to how he sounded in the prequel trilogy. Tim Curry does not quite sound like the Palpatine of the original trilogy, but it's Tim Curry.
Doug Walker once called Palpatine the Tim Curry of Star Wars, so it's very fitting that Tim Curry played Palpatine.
It's very fitting. I mean, I probably would have picked someone else to play it, but it just gives me like so much giddiness because he's just got this charm and this overacting to him. So in a way, he does suit being a Palpatine whenever he comes on. But all that aside, Yoda has another vision of he has other visions of what the Jedi Council used to be when Count Dooku was good. Only to realize
this is like no. Here's what it was. Okay, so this is like they showed him of what it's like when there is no compassion or no caring or there's apathy, and like also when he showed there's like a scene where all the Jedi are dead, and then one Jedi and Ahsoka was there too, and that one child said that you could take it away all the pain and misery if you come with them, and then they were taken to this like all perfect world where everyone's happy and there's no pain and suffering, but it's all an illusion. It's all a lie. It's trying to say that it's like we pain and suffering is a part of the world, and you can't have a perfect world, and that's what God in the old Bible tried to make, but even that didn't work out.
Yeah, he created free will so that we could learn how to properly love each other. Yes, that's right. This arc was fascinating, even though I've seen plenty of fans take the concept of the Force in the hilariously wrong turns. It's still a fascinating concept to have these discussions.
Here's one fascinating wrong turn: the Gray Jedi, which I once thought was the right way. So it's basically like using the light in the dark, which I now say that's complete and total bullshit. It's just that the light is supposed to be happiness, and in the dark is supposed to be pain and suffering. But no, life still has pain and suffering with it. But it's just that if you go to the dark side, then that's nothing but pain and suffering. That's nothing but pain and suffering for everyone, including yourself.
Mm-hmm. But as Yoda said, it is more seducing, but it's weaker than the light eventually, yeah.
And that's why if you want both happiness and suffering at the same time, fully happy and fully in pain at the same time, that's impossible. You can't achieve that. It's like if you try, but here's the reason. all beings in the Star Wars universe both have light and dark in them. Both have light and dark in them. It's just that they and also light side. The light side is the Force, and the Force is balance. And light side is balancing the dark side inside of you. And also, if the dark side wins, then the dark side can not destroy or like weaken the light side, and then we can, because Vader still was Anakin, and that it didn't weaken his lights. It didn't destroy his light side forever. It just only weakened it. But the dark side took it over.
Aha. Okay. So this arc ends with Yoda confirming, okay, yes, Qui-Gon Jinn really is alive in this as a Force ghost, and I have achieved the means of it. But I'll tell Obi-Wan Kenobi about this later in the events
But
of
here's
Avengers.
where like Yoda still fails, as he still abides by the Jedi Code, even the prequel and in the original trilogy. He's too old to begin the training. But here is where like Yoda learns like to forget about the Jedi Code when Luke like fully redeems his father, and that's where Yoda and Obi-Wan both learn the wrongs of the Jedi and what the Jedi should be. And that's what the purpose of Obi-Wan, and the purpose of Obi-Wan in Yoda being Force Ghost is to teach Luke still like the proper ways of being a Jedi, discipline and training, but Luke is making all the decisions. He is the one who makes the code. He makes the new code. And Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda are the ones there to help him, not to take over. They're the
Right. So that was one of the most fascinating arcs in the entire series. Other ones could tend to drag a bit. Others were perfectly paced. Others really benefited from the Star Wars lore. I've heard a lot of people say it's a bit of a mix, but the arcs that work really do work. I suppose this could tie into something that I've noticed. I've been recently watching the prequel trilogy, and I can confirm that the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones are some of the worst Star Wars movies I've ever seen.
No, they're not. They are not. They are not.
Yeah, you can defend it. However, Revenge of the Sith is actually pretty good. And that, despite a few flaws, I think it's really good. I think my main problem with the other two prequel series is that there were a lot of scenes that I felt either needed to be trimmed down or eventually felt kind of unnecessary. But those same sorts of scenes can be seen in the Clone Wars, except it works. I feel like the long convolution and the extra explanations of the lore work better in a televised format because you have an audience that's willing to sit down to sink it all in and see what it's building up to. Whereas with a movie, you've got a crowd that's saying, okay, just say what you have to say and just get on crucial points, which is why you've had
one thing, like the Star Wars, the prequels haters hated the politics. They didn't want politics in Star Wars, even though it's Star Wars. Of course, it's gonna be politics, and also politics. You had to have politics when it's the rise of a dictator. You can't not have politics. They are complete full of dumbasses who don't understand Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I.
And I talked about Doug Walker, Cosmonaut Variety Hour, the Red Letter Media, and also a bunch of other critics, and especially I Hate Everything.
Yeah, you really should just put your biases aside and just try your best to think of it with a critical thinking mind. And I am not saying that the prequel movies that I mentioned are the worst atrocities ever put to mankind. No. I would be happy to watch them again. It's just that there's just a lot of awkward bits that I think, did you really have to put that in? Because the original trilogy was better paced and it told a story, and it and I know there's a lot of people who's like, I'm just in it for the action, fight. perfect. But I think applying some exposition can be done right with the politics teachings of the Force, and I felt like the whole political talk was handled really well in the Clone Wars because it was a show catered towards children, but adults can watch as well. That delved into like some serious topics like the philosophy of slavery, talking about how they manage their incomes and how it's going to impact war.
And also, don't forget that basically, to all the people who say that Palpatine wasn't evil and the Empire wasn't evil, okay, in the show, that Palpatine tried to revive a slave empire, and also he took control over the banking clan, which had everyone's money, and he used that to fund the Death Star. So imagine, like, throughout 20 years, like, after, and he can just steal money from whoever he wants in order to make his Death Stars. Do you know where the money came from to buying that Death Stars? That's where it came from. That it came from the people's pockets. It's like communism.
Mm-hmm.
So the Empire is evil. Palpatine is evil. He's evil to the core, and you guys are idiots for thinking that he's not. Okay.
In fact, he's so evil.
I'm sorry for saying that. I'm sorry. That was.
I'll edit that out. Don't worry. He's so evil. In fact, he still didn't give funding for stormtroopers' proper aiming or strong armor.
Actually, in A New Hope, I did actually see a stormtrooper hit a guy.
Yeah, hit a guy.
But it doesn't hit our main heroes. That's where the plot armor comes in.
Yeah. It's just like, sorry, I'm just catching into the joke. Everyone loves to make fun of the fact, regardless of the movies, that stormtroopers have the bad aiming. Sorry.
And that's why stormtroopers are honestly better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of So I think I should round up the political talk. I think the political talk was handled well because, as you established, it does eventually matter. You just got to be patient to put up with it, and it's really fascinating to see different sides talk about it. There's even a scene where Padme and Ahsoka are peacefully talking with the Separatists at the time, their main enemies, led by Count Dooku, and they even say a few jokes together. It's surprising. It's just to say, hey, not everyone in the Separatist side are evil for the sake of being evil. They're trying to find a better society as well. It's just, how are we going to do that? That's where people have their disagreements from. I think all that kind of thing scattered throughout the series. I think that's really fascinating, and again, handled better in the format of a television series.
Yeah, and also it's kind of like how the Republicans and Democrats are seen as both two parties who are different opinions and different interests. And
I just remembered. There's a significant character who's a love interest to Obi-Wan Kenobi and has a significant link to Mandalore.
This show teaches the failure of pacifism, why it should never be in government.
Yes. First, a lot of people will say, how dare you? Pacifism is the way to peace. I mean, of course, not murdering, that's the end goal, but
here's the thing. Pacifism in an ideal world can work, but do we live in an ideal world? We don't. So, and pacifism is basically apathy. It's like pacifism is, if you want to be peace, then you just ignore everything else. That's the way to pacifism. And if you just ignore everything else, then you ignore suffering, you ignore innocent people being in danger, you ignore all of that. And that's why pacifism is apathy. And apathy, like in KOTOR 2 says, is death.
Yeah, and they show the impact of this kind of apathy in various arcs regarding Mandalore and Obi-Wan Kenobi's involvement in trying to fix the situation, and then later on, Darth Maul and his brother taking control over the only for Darth Sidious to slaughter his brother, then torture Maul, and then who knows what happens to him, only for Mandalore to come back again in the final arc of the final season. Yes. Which we'll get to eventually. So yeah, that's the last political thing. So yeah, it's interesting to talk about the ups and downs of various sides. So of course, none of this would have been possible without the clone troopers themselves. And so yes, I think it's rather appropriate that the Clone Wars focus on, well, the actual clones if you want to find out what their origins were, you got to watch the Attack of the Clones to find out where they came from. But they're basically all clones of Jango Fett. But this time in this series,
I don't know why people have said he's not real Mandalorian, but the Mandalorian even said that Boba Fett and Jango Fett are real Mandalorians. And I don't know if that's true in the eye of George Lucas, but I hope it is, because where else did Jango Fett get that Mandalorian armor?
Indeed. So, for whatever reason, which is not a complaint, but
and when
all the
also in the show, when Almec, a character, says that's no, he's no Mandalorian, just a bounty hunter, and there has to be more to that. There can't be just that he's just a bounty hunter. So,
the clones, for whatever reason, but not that I'm complaining, all have Australian accents, and they're all voiced by the ever so talented D. Bradley Baker, who's
the reason why they have Australian accents because in the original movie he was played by an Australian. Remember, remember?
Okay, I probably missed that. Sorry to whoever played Jango Fett. Sorry.
I can look up his name.
Right. So essentially, all the clones, absolutely all of them, are voiced by the talented
Temoria Morrison.
Temoria Morrison. Sorry. All the clones are voiced by D. Bradley Baker, and I've got to say, out of all the voice actors, I think he puts in the most passion and effort into it, because he's not having to voice practically the same tone of character all over again. He's having to use different tones, different mainly dialects, and he has to keep acting as hundreds of different separate souls who just happen to have the same genetics who are clones. So it's astounding.
And like I said, the reason why the clones aren't all the same is because you can't clone consciousness. You can't clone.
Yeah. They make that abundantly clear in the first episode of season 1. You can skip season 2 and season 1, but I'm glad I watched the first few episodes of season 1, because you get to know the clones. I think it's quite clever on Dave Filoni's part. I mean, they focus on various characters.
D. Bradley Baker deserves an Emmy or something for his.
Yeah, props to you, D. Bradley Baker. You're amazing.
Emmy.
When I'm looking back at the series, I mean, the series focuses on multiple characters, but I'm impressed that from a storytelling perspective, which does round up to the finale, they focus a lot on the clones themselves, sort of the prejudice that goes against them, how they learn that they're separate souls, they're their own people, and Yoda points this out during their first military mission. Yoda points out that they're not all the same. They're all different. They are all individuals, and we learn this later on when they start to give themselves names based on.
And also, the one thing the Jedi did good, the reason why the clones had more confidence in themselves was because the Jedi's compassion towards them that made them more individualistic. So the one thing that the Jedi did good towards in the war was taught their clones how to be more like people.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much of an extent they're willing to delve into that. There's one episode where the clones are chasing down General Grievous, and his robots are getting tired, and they take refuge in this farm, and the dad of this family just happens to be a clone himself, who ran away from the war and settled down to have a family. So
also a bi-special family with a Twi'lek.
Yeah. Nice biracial commentary there. They talk about, shouldn't you be helping us? And he's saying, well, what about when this war is over? Don't you want to take a break from it all? And of course, there's a bit of action in between, but all these questions are taken into consideration for all of them. And there's a variety of clones, but there's several of them that you get to know. There's fives. There's one who loves to use guns.
That's heavy. Oh no, that's
heavy.
Hard case.
Hard case.
No. I don't know. Heavy is the one who loves to use guns. Hard case is the one who loves fun no matter what.
Okay, got it. I was beginning
no matter what.
Heavy.
Because none of them are the same.
Yeah. And of course, there's Captain Rex, who managed to survive and make it to sequel installments of the series. All of them have different adventures and arcs of their own at some point, and I'm surprised that they managed to make me care and get to know all these characters, even though they're almost completely identical. It's really impressive just how much characterization, and which goes into D. Bradley Baker's acting and subtle nuances to the character design. It makes it all the more tragic when bad stuff does happen to them, especially when Fives has found a glitch in one of the clones, which
turns out to be an inhibitor chip, which turns out that he found out before anyone else that the inhibitor chips could kill the Jedi, and that Palpatine was behind all of it, and Anakin and Rex confronted him and still didn't listen to him because they didn't believe him. But he had to die, and he wanted. But you know what doesn't make this meaningless is because he wanted to save everyone. He wanted to save I only wanted to do my duty, and that's what made Five's death is so tragic. We know that he was gonna die the moment that he found out about the inhibitor chip, but we still felt sad. And I heard that sometimes when you know about when a character's gonna die or something's gonna happen to them, and you still care about them even though you know what's gonna happen to them. I heard, and that's very true.
Yeah. And the tragedy doesn't stop there. Oh no! It carries over to various other episodes, especially the final arc, and it's very clever that the series focuses on that. But I think before we talk about the final arc, which is what I made this video as an excuse of, we should probably talk about some other characters that were introduced in the Clone Wars, mainly Ahsoka Tana. Ahsoka Tana was great. She was created by Dave Filoni. Was
and
George
Lucas? George Lucas
and George Lucas. Dave Filoni, right? She was set up as a sort of a link between the Star Wars and us as the audience, like the sort of the Jubilee in an X is to X-Men, or
but don't, because I heard Jubilee is a terrible character. I heard
yeah. Characters like that sort of act as a sort of a link for the audience to sort of latch onto. She started out like that at first. I heard there was criticisms that she didn't have much character until later on, when people started to really appreciate her and even become one of their favorite characters. She became so well beloved that recently in The Mandalorian Season 2, she made her live-action debut, which was quite impressive.
Circle is now complete.
Yeah, circle is now complete. So, who is Ahsoka Tana? She is the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker.
And one thing, also the main criticism about that Ahsoka being Anakin's apprentice is that Anakin had never had an apprentice, and she was never mentioned in the movies, so why should we care? But here's why. Here's why we should care. Because sometimes she doesn't need to be in the movie. She could be on her own. This is also, the Clone Wars was its own thing at the same time it was connecting to the movies. So, and also as as Clone Wars developed, so did Ahsoka. And also the development between Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship also helped the movies. And when Ahsoka left the Jedi Order because she was framed, and that the Jedi didn't trust her, and even said that all that was a test, all that so she can be like, no, we were totally on your side the whole time, but nope, we were never on your side actually. But she left, and that also brought Anakin more doubt to the Jedi Order. So that did add something to the movie.
Yeah, so there was a purpose for Ahsoka all along, as well as her just being a typical sort of heroine to be there throughout the series. I mean, she was definitely likable, but we definitely saw her purpose in the overall narrative when she was put to the test and she was framed, and but then everyone thought it was okay. But she, despite her love for all the Jedi members and especially for all the clones, she just couldn't trust them. And Anakin tried to
But
persuade her to stay, but she said,
but
"Look,
also, a character can go beyond their purpose. A character can go beyond their purpose. And that's why Ahsoka still was around to the 7th season and still was around towards Rebels and was around towards The Mandalorian. But I felt like her story, maybe if maybe I'm glad it didn't end in Rebels because we got to see her in The Mandalorian in live action. So we can see now we have a live action like trio of Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan in a animated version of Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan.
yeah, yeah, we saw in the Clone Wars her as a teenager, and then Rebels in her 20s, and then in Mandalorian she's a fully grown woman. So don't know what's going to happen to her in the future, but hey, she's become a great character as far as I know with all that she's gone through, and her relationship with the clones. So is that I wonder what else there is to Ahsoka. Probably, I think everything we just mentioned was a great factor. Was there anything else worth mentioning about Ahsoka in the Clone Wars?
Well, it's just that Ahsoka is Ahsoka. Okay, I want to say something.
Uh-huh.
Deku from My Hero Academia basically has the same character development as Ahsoka. I'm
Oh,
convinced that that the creator of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, has seen the Clone Wars, even made made Easter eggs like named cities after like Kamino or like Tatooine or so I'm convinced that he's seen the Clone Wars and decided to make Deku like Ahsoka.
all right, that makes sense. Yeah, she does have that gradual progression of going through her trials and growing as a Jedi Padawan. I mean, of course, she tragically quits, but the development's still there, and she still had all that training and learning, and everything about her, the clones, comes down to the final arc, which is pretty much like how do I put it? Like the Avengers End Game of
They're not
Clone
Endgame,
Wars.
Infinity War.
Infinity War, yeah, that sort of thing.
It's actually even darker than Infinity War because this goes on for around 20 years. That went on for 5 years.
Yeah. Now, you have been a fan of Clone Wars ever since you were a child. You've been
6 years
watching the
old.
6 years old. Thank you. And
And
you've
since I
been
was 6 years old.
6 years old.
Quoting Cassian Andor on that.
Right. Fair enough. Whilst you were learning how to spell your name, I was watching Star Wars Clone Wars. You've been watching it since you were 6, as established. And you've watched it for a long time, only for season 6 to, end with season 5 ending with Ahsoka leaving.
Okay. So season 5 ended, and I was sad. I was like sad, but then when I found it was canceled, I was like mad. And then when it came back, I was glad. But then I had to wait six years for it to come back. Thanks to Disney. 6 years. Six years. 6 years.
But eventually, with the establishment of the Disney Plus software, not only did they bring the Clone Wars series onto it, but they were kind
And
enough
the only reason they did that was to get more people to watch Disney Plus.
On the plus side, I was introduced to Star Wars Clone Wars by you properly, but either way, they managed to establish a final season of the Clone Wars.
I'm not thankful to Disney, and I don't forgive them, but I'm glad at least that they finally finished it, because the best part of the story is the ending. Even though I don't want the story to end, the best part and the most important part of the story is always the net ending.
Yeah, so I gotta admit, you took me straight to that final arc, having seen all the arcs that we needed to. How did the rest of season 7 compare to this finale?
Well, me and everyone else, we didn't think. I enjoyed it, but I did think the middle part was a bit stupid and especially, this is like this is story because like this Like
Mhm.
it was originally Ahsoka was supposed to like when she went out of the Jedi Order, she was supposed to meet this like Asian guy, but then Disney decided to like replace it with two Hispanic chicks. I don't know why. I don't know why they did that. You confuse me with how woke you are, Disney. Like there's already an Asian guy, and you're placing him with Hispanic chicks who are basically who one is an idiot and the other is I don't even give a shit about.
Well, I mean, to their credit, I suppose Disney is a bit more
And
sensitive
you
to
think that
how,
Jar Jar is a bad character, or do you think that
yeah,
Rose Tico is a bad
yeah,
character?
yeah.
Wait until you meet like I don't even know her name, but just like wait until you meet. Let me see. Um.
Okay, got
Uh,
it, got it. I suppose to Disney's credit, this is the same company who are a bit regretful, as far as I know, to their depiction of like Native Americans in Peter Pan. They've recently established these like notices on some of their films, like we acknowledge that
Trace, that's her name. Trace, that's her
Trace,
name.
Trace. All right. Disney has recently established on films like Fantasia, okay, we've made these mistakes, but we're willing to move on. But this is a part of our history, so just please keep that in mind. So
Nope,
I
they
wouldn't
want to
play.
completely erase their history. Have you heard what happened to Splash Mountain? They're turning
Uh,
into the Princess and the Frog Mountain now.
uh,
They're trying to erase their like we were never racist. We were never racist. We were never racist. We're a family friendly company. No,
I'm not
we're a
saying.
vicious empire. We are a
Yeah,
vicious totalitarian empire.
yeah, yeah. Of course. From the indication of the notices that I've seen on several movies on Disney Plus, it sounds like they're acknowledging that they were racist in the past and they're willing to move on. At least that's what it sounds like. But that aside, um, all I suppose what you just said could about the faulty arcs could display my thoughts on the Clone Wars in
Bad
general.
Batch arc. No, here the Bad Batch arc was not bad.
Yeah,
It was average. It was average.
yeah,
But you know
basically.
what? I wanted the Republic Commandos. They were in this show. They were Sev, like Fixer, Scorch, Boss. I wanted them alongside Anakin and Rex. I didn't want
Mhm.
these. I know it's a. I know the Clone Force 99 is a homage to 99, the clone who died. You know, the 99 was basically this clone who's basically the Quasimodo of Star Wars, and he
Oh yes.
died. And it was an honor to him. But why could you also have the Republic Commandos? Why could you have like
Hmm.
them too?
Yeah, one of my problems. Of course, you see this whole show as a masterpiece, but which I respect you for. Um, I've noticed in the Clone Wars, and I think a lot of people noticed too, the Clone Wars series isn't exactly perfect. There are some arcs that are just a tad bit unnecessary, or arcs that are a little bit so-so. However, I can definitely see why people love the show. The arcs that work.
It's
There
an
are,
anthology series. It's a hit and miss
yeah,
series. Like it's supposed to be like that because not every
uh,
story has to matter, and
yeah,
also
fair enough.
it's like so you have to look at what's good. You have to look at what's valuable.
Yeah, count your blessings, because even the worst television show can still produce gold from time to time.
Don't call this the
And
worst television show.
oh no, no, I was just making an example. I think that was a bit out of context. Sorry, sorry, that was completely out of context. So on the one hand, you might have a few bits that may bore a few people, but and then there's other arcs where you talk about deep elements of the Force, like Yoda's Pilgrim's Progress, and Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka meeting the Mortis gods of light and dark, and how they influence their vision of the Force and everything, which was another fascinating arc in terms of further establishing the lore of the Force, as well as consequences and stuff like that. And then I've we recently watched the final arc of the final season, and after watching it, I looked at the episode ratings of IMDb. All 4 episodes of this arc are the top ranking episodes on IMDb. Like, this is, and I agree, this arc is a masterpiece. This is the best arc in this entire series. You can say what you want about how dull some parts were. You could say anything about it not worked, but the arcs that work do work, and they've saved the best for last. Like,
but also let's talk about the Umbara arc.
The Umbara arc. Remind me what arc that
was
again.
The one with the friendly fire.
Friendly fire, right? That was you're the expert on this, not me.
Okay, so Krell was basically in control of a battalion of clones, and he basically was the worst sergeant. It's basically
man, that was the
Full
first
Metal Jacket. It's like basically Full Metal Jacket, except this time the general was a full madman who didn't care about the lives of his clones, and also there was a bit of racism, like because he was a bit racist towards the clones.
That was the first arc you showed me. I think that dragged a little bit, but at the same time, that was just to show the sort of gritty realism of military warfare.
And also, it's basically like the Vietnam War, and also it's also great showing of American imperialism, because basically the good guys are really invading another people's home and basically another place's planet and basically like taking it over. So it's
that ending was quite shocking. Them finding out that they're just fighting each other, and then they apprehend the villain who's got multiple lightsabers. Then they cleverly use their environment to take him down, only to imprison him and then have one of them kill him out of anger. Like, wow. I just thought, wow, talk about a first impression. Like, yikes.
But you know how in Avatar Airbender, where he said, I can't do it. And basically in the Clone Wars, Dogma, and also, wait, let's just talk about that. Captain Rex was wanting to kill Krell. He wanted to do it, but he can't kill a Jedi. But the one most fitting to do it was Dogma, because he was the one who was the most loyal to him. He was the one who did every order, even when he made me kill my own brothers. And he was completely betrayed by his own general. So he was the one most fitting to kill his general. And it's like, I had to. And see, that is showing sacrifice by doing the hard thing. And that's what sometimes you gotta do the hard thing.
Indeed.
And when he did that, it was hard for him. Even though it was like I had to. It was hard for him, but it was hard. It wasn't like he didn't do it he didn't add satisfaction about it. He didn't was happy about it. He was like
yeah, it's gonna haunt him for the rest of his life. And oh boy, speaking of things that haunt us for the rest of our lives, do you want to talk about that final arc?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This arc is called the Siege of Mandalore, so it's just as well we watch the arcs that specifically relate to Mandalore, because it plays an integral part of the first 2 episodes of this arc. It starts off the usual Clone Wars fanfare with the last bit of humor we'll get from Anakin, and the clones just doing what clones do best, as well as a reunion.
No, wait, wasn't the fanfare of the beginning more like the movies?
Oh yeah, the fanfare for the Clone Wars has a bit more of a sort of militarized kind of drumming rhythm. And with the start of this one, it was establishing itself like, pay attention, this is going to be a very important arc. So in fact, I've heard a lot of people say that these episodes should not be viewed individually because they could be a bit higgledy-piggledy that way. Again, this is why it's best seen in arcs. And I've heard a lot of people say this arc is like a movie because aside from, the animation and the effects being...
It's also like a video game.
Yeah, you could say that with a lot of the things, but the graphics compared to season 1 have been improved. But apart from the quality, there's some amazing choreography and as well as an epic narrative. But I think we'll get to that. So we have Anakin and Ahsoka reuniting, and the clones paint their helmets to mimic Ahsoka in honor of her. Even though she's left the Jedi, they still respect her and even still salute her, even if she's not thinking, no, you don't have to call me Commander. Yes, Commander. They still call him Commander. That's so sweet. And
it's gonna break our heart.
And on the one hand, I would have liked to have seen recreations of Revenge of the Sith with the Clone Wars style, but on the other hand, I think it was a really clever move to show the rest of the story, basically the events of Revenge of the Sith, from the perspective of Ahsoka and the clones, because I think it was wise for them to think deep and reflect. Okay, the prequel trilogy was about Anakin. We introduced these characters, so we should make this story about them. This is the story of Ahsoka and the clones, about how they got through it. And of course, the Clone Wars will end at, well, of course, the end of the Clone Wars. That goes without saying. But how it ends, whew, well, let's just say Darth Maul tried to warn them after a wonderfully choreographed fight. But, oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
If you showed me that when I was 6, that would depress me for like a month. Or if you showed me that when I was 12, that would probably depress me for like a week.
Basically, it's the events of Order 66, which, as you Star Wars fans know, is when Palpatine gives the order for the clones to make them activate the brain chips, which initiates the rule that Jedi are now traitors to the government, so they must be killed.
Is not a Jedi, but the reason why Sidious still wants her dead is because she's still linked to Anakin.
And she's still she could bring him to the light, which is a threat for him. That's why the clones were going after Ahsoka. Yeah. It's interesting that even the clones bring this up. Like, I can't accidentally kill her because she's left the Jedi Order. But we still have to kill her nonetheless. Are you sure about that? It'll be treason to kill the Jedi. But if she's not a Jedi, we're committing treason. They think about it for a moment. Sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
Rex was doing that.
Yeah, it was Rex who was doing that. Basically, Ahsoka, I love how Ahsoka actually felt through the Force Anakin's turn to the dark side right before Palpatine gives the order to commit Order 66. And Rex, oh boy, is doing everything in his willpower to stop shooting Ahsoka from saying, no, I'll do it. And then he's mentioning Fives, even though it's completely out of context. Fives is the clone who found out about Order 66. That's why he's just randomly spurting Fives. Find him! And then Ahsoka's having to fight her way out.
She killed clones. She killed 2 clones, which she did the unthinkable.
She has no idea what's going on, but she escapes. She puts Darth Maul on the loose to try to escape.
And to kill clones, but she's doing it to survive. Even though she's not trying to kill him, but it's still complex. She's being a mess because she's trying to survive, but at the same time not trying to hurt anyone. It's really hard to do both.
She's just trying to make the best of it. But
unintentionally, when Darth Maul destroyed the ship, she basically killed all the clones, every single last one of them. And when she dropped those lightsabers, she was like, "This is gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Like, this is gonna haunt us for the rest of our lives."
At least she managed to save Rex, who she managed to perform a brain surgery to get the chip out of. So at least there's that.
And at least Fives didn't die in vain.
Yeah. So at least there's that. So it all comes full circle, and the final scene, it's really powerful, and it doesn't have any dialogue, but there's no need for it. Everyone already knows what happened, and they know the full context of what's going on. I can imagine just anyone, even if you've never seen any of the movies, I think the show has well established what was going to happen to Anakin, again, with the Mortis gods foretelling that Anakin would become a masked warrior. I don't think they mentioned Darth Vader by name, but that mask is just too iconic to ignore. So
even though that was kind of pointless, it was kind of pointless that Anakin knew that only just the memory erased.
Yeah, so at least we, the audience, if we never saw the movies, were informed. So this whole arc and this whole show as a series could not have ended in a better way because, of course, the Clone Wars ended in a tragedy. All the Jedi were wiped out. But this episode talked about the tragedy of the clones. They were the main stars, and now they're all gone. Well, no one's ever really gone, as Luke would say, but they're all dead. And years later, we find that the wreckage of what happened, the all too familiar stormtroopers are roaming about the place. Then we just hear the all too familiar breathing, and
But I
we
have to
see
say
Darth.
one thing: a good ending won't save a bad show. But as long as a fantastic ending has fantastic episodes, then it's well worth it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still criticize the ending of Samurai Jack, but I still love that show. But this ending, whether people thought the show was good or not, this is definitely the best way to end the show. Darth Vader, who, in case you haven't picked it up, is Anakin Skywalker, walks up to the site, finds the lightsaber that he gave to Ahsoka as a gift. And this scene is essentially him reflecting back on the Clone Wars one last time before putting it all behind him. Well, aside from keeping the lightsabers far in addition to his collection.
What did he do with those lightsabers anyway?
I don't know. Maybe he became the new General Grievous. I don't know. But he sees the sight of the clones being dead. He sees the bird, which a lot of people have speculated is meant to represent Ahsoka. But I think whether he knows Ahsoka is dead or alive at that point, it's up for the audience's speculation. But I love the final frame of this. I think it perfectly encapsulates not just the moment, but the series as a whole. We saw Anakin's slow descent to the dark side, and this is all about the clones. So, what better way to end the series with a clone helmet, specifically a helmet that was painted as an homage to Ahsoka, and then in the visor reflection, we see Darth Vader walk away. End credits.
And you know what that symbolizes? That all the clones died for nothing. That they all died only for Palpatine to rise. And also the Separatists, they did all of that was all for nothing. Their strives to make a better place for their for like their star systems, that was all for nothing. And also, I heard in like the EU that the Empire had another second Clone Wars and tried to destroy the Separatists once and for all and enslave them all. But I really wish that was made canon.
See, this is why I love visual storytelling. I mean, obviously you got to explain some things, but there's a reason why I latch on to shows like Samurai Jack or scenes like this, where the imagery speaks for itself. And
that's why we love anime openings. That's why we love anime.
Anime openings. So that ended off
That's
on a.
why Avatar Airbender's intro is dull as hell, even though you're gonna probably hate me for that.
Yeah. So this show ends on a bleak note, but fans who know of Star Wars knows that there's still that hope for.
Okay, no. The hope, and at the end of Revenge of the Sith, that was supposed to be the hope for the future. What the Clone Wars ending is represent the consequences and like the destruction and like the devastation of the whole galaxy brought by Sidious.
Right. Yeah. We still have the hope of the original trilogy, but for now it pretty much ends on a dour note of the Empire taking over everything and Anakin saying goodbye to all the clones and Ahsoka now that he's consumed by anger and suffering. What a way to end a show, huh? This show is gonna go down in history.
It is, and I heard that's very niche. Hopefully more and more people will find it, and more people will watch it. And
yeah, there's one last thing I want to say before I finish this interview is that a lot of people have this stupid idea that just because it's animated means that it's by definition for children, but that's just
That's
absolutely
because America has, thanks to Disney, it's all thanks to Disney. I blame Disney because they're the ones
well,
that.
I mean, Disney set the standard, of course, but there's other companies that Illumination who bombarding us with the minions, and other people like that who are not really helping the case. But of course, if you look elsewhere, like with anime or with The Simpsons or with shows like this, you'll find that it's
Castlevania.
yeah, you'll find that that's not the case. Animation is just another way of telling stories. In
Animation is
fact,
not a genre; it's a medium.
yes, it's as a medium. In fact, if you're wanting to get some unique visuals, then animation's the most consistent way of doing it because it can be stylized by your vision. It can
That's why everything is better in animation. It doesn't have
yes.
to look real. It doesn't have to look real because
Mm,
it isn't real. And so why should it have to look real?
precisely. So
Real.
you're you latch on to the imaginations of people.
But what matters that it feels real and you can love something that doesn't even look like you, doesn't look like a real person. You can still love it. You can still feel for it, even though that's the magic, that's the power, that's the fantasticness of it.
You can get so much expression from it, and you can use your imagination to create visuals as well as some thematic storytelling that you normally wouldn't get with live action, which to an extent has been fully realized in the Clone Wars series.
It's just that you know it's just that imagine an alternate universe where Star Wars was made by Japan.
Money in the bag.
And also, how would you think that if they did it in animated form, how do you think it would be great? How do you think?
I've seen some internet animations of like this anime TIE fighter fight, so I guess it's not too far off from reality. um, but the point we're trying to make here is that look, the Clone Wars might seem a bit daunting to get into at first, but if you have friends like Brooks here, or if you're willing to be patient enough to sit through a television series to see what it's building up to, and if you see animation as a work of art, I guarantee you'll find something to love from the Clone Wars.
Okay, well, I think that's it.
Yep, that is it, and I will stop recording. Thank you so much. I could not have done this without you.